Hey, Phil, welcome back to the Make It Go podcast.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
You got to get that excited about it.
Yay.
Today we got a
Nerd
special
alert.
guest, a special guest. Nerd alert. That's rude.
I'm not used to looking at you this way.
Yeah, we changed. We changed spots because Victoria's wearing a beautiful dress. She thought this was an important podcast, but jokes on her. It's funny how the people who dress up for this, and we're like, no, that's not why she's wearing a dress.
I didn't prep for this.
Yeah,
we don't
we
need
didn't either. Anyways, got a great guest today, my girl Victoria. Been knowing Victoria
6 years, almost 7 years.
6, 7 years, and definitely, I think I'm just learning your story, and I think actually here I'm going to learn a whole lot more that I'm really excited about because I think for you, what comes to mind is perseverance. And boundaries. Like we recently do it. We do it. Well, we don't recently, but we do a mindset chat on Tuesday nights, and Victoria actually is starting to lead them, and I'm just like so enamored by you and all the wisdom you have.
I didn't say all that. But
And enamored is a big word for
Yeah.
by the way. So Victoria, tell us a little bit about you and where you're from and your story.
All right. Well, I'm Victoria. I'm from St. Rose, Louisiana. So if you don't know where that is, it's a little bit past the airport in Kenner. I've been raised here, although I haven't lived here for forever. I've been in and out of the state, and I guess let's just cut right to what my story is. I've been listening to all the different podcasts, and I really like the name of it, Make It Count, because I'm trying to understand how does my story play into that. And I've been on this journey of making my life count, and it started for me about 7 years ago. So Jen doesn't realize. So Jen and me have met, and we were in the same gym setting for a while together. But when I met Jen, I was about a year into a personal growth journey, and it was a very big journey. And she doesn't even realize how much of that I did while being a member of Trying Fitness and how much Trying Fitness actually plays into that. So just the FYI. So I feel like she's going to learn a lot of things today because although we've known each other, we didn't really get to know each other, I would say, until the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Really, I mean,
When all your trainers left you,
yeah,
and that's not
I started with other trainers, and actually, I trained with Brett for a while, and and that was a really hard transition. But when now I really got an opportunity to get to know Jen, and I think likewise. So 7 years ago, what happened 7 years ago? 7 years ago, my life changed. If I go back to what my childhood was like, I don't know how far back I should go, but I am in recovery. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I'm a recovered drug addict. But more than that, I'm a recovered negative person because I'm gonna be really frank with you. Alcohol and drugs were just a solution to a much deeper problem that I had that I didn't even really know that I had.
I think they usually are. Right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So of course, there's no telling my story without saying that. That's why I have to say it because I mean that kind of propelled my life in a direction into some scary places that I had to get myself out of. That although the symptoms that I were treating were there prior to picking up, that drink or that. I'll be honest. Sometimes it's food. Sometimes it's any external source to kind of make my insides feel good, right? Like, let's just start it. I'd say I've had a pretty normal life because what's normal is what what you grow up in. But around 13 years old, I found alcohol. I drank a fifth of whiskey. It was the first time I got drunk, y'all, and it was just the most amazing experience of my life.
At 13?
At 13.
Fifth of whiskey at 13.
Yeah, well, half a fifth. I'm sorry, half a whiskey. But and that sounds like a weird thing. Kids get into stuff, but for me, it was like finding my superpower. I really have no other way to describe it. It's like a love story, and it's crazy when you think of it. And saying it now as an adult, looking back, I'm like, there was a problem. But then you don't know that, right? You don't know what you don't know. And that was and of course I got really drunk, had some consequences. Some people tattled on me, but. I think 2 weeks from then was my second drink, and that was my first blackout. And blackouts, if you don't know what they are, that's when you drink and you don't remember what you did. And when I black out, it's crazy. I don't go to sleep. I don't pass out somewhere. I just start doing a bunch of random stuff. And I got to hear about what I did later. And, most people, when you come from that, especially at 13 years old and you wake up from a blackout where people are telling you, oh my God, you were acting like ass, you were doing this, you were doing that, we took pictures, your mom would try to drag you in the house, all these things, it would probably scare you. And honestly, from that moment on, I don't think I drew a sober breath again. And that was it. Second time I drank. So, whether or not.
Everybody likes a drunk kid.
No, especially when they get bigger and drunk
Nobody
adults.
likes a kid. I'm just kidding.
But it just became my one and sole object in life, and and to the point where I had consequences very quickly. So I went from, and as a kid, I was a very quiet kid. I was straight A student. I was one of those kids that won all the awards. I don't really think I had a bad childhood, but I definitely grew up in chaos. So let me start with that. Not realizing that when I started putting alcohol in my body, I may have some bad consequences, but I come from a family of alcoholics, serious alcoholics, died from cirrhosis in the 40s alcoholics, abusive alcoholics, and drug addicts. So I would say the majority of the people in my immediate family who's passed away has been from drugs and alcohol or addiction. Not knowing that, not understanding that. No one was really open and communicated because these are not recovered people. These are people very much in the depths of their addiction. So when I started putting my hands on things like that, it didn't really signal, don't do it. I mean, well, everybody, I get it. Wow, this makes sense now, and I won't really go too far into, I guess, the drinking and the drugging. I mean, I'll give you some stories that show the insanity of what it was like. But, it just became a way of life really quickly. And, and I said I never drew a sober breath, and it progressed very quickly for me, too. So, we're talking daily drinking. We're talking hiding fifths of vodka in my closet at 14-year-old, taking shots. And I'm thinking this is a normal thing, that if you had alcohol, you would drink it, too. But obviously, now when you're looking at me like, that's not normal. But to me, being surrounded by those types of people, it very much was normal. And for me, it just went straight to very quickly. I would say in 3 months, we're getting into all the drugs now. And what it was the chase of just feeling even better. So like I said, to me, it was almost like I found my superpowers, right? All of a sudden, I was a very anxious kid, and my husband laughs at the story because I don't think I'm going to share it on this podcast because he thinks it's hilarious. One of my biggest fears as a kid was, how do you get a mortgage? I'm worried about where I'm going to be living at 18 years old because no one's explained this to me yet. So I had a lot of anxiety about a lot of things, about how I was going to take care of myself, because I very much was taking care of myself, and I very much wanted to be self-sufficient, and I don't want to get into all of my family's personal problems, but they weren't talking. I'm from a very dysfunctional family, and a lot of those fears that were driving, so that's what it was. I was very fear driven. So by the time I found alcohol, fear was already driving my life. Yeah, I'm doing really well at school because I have a fear that if I don't do really well, I'm not going to be able to get a job, and I'm not going to be able to take care of myself. Or I have a fear that if I meet a man, then I'm going to have to do, and I'm not going to get in all that, but I had a fear that, men are going to control you. So if you don't have, if you don't make enough money and you don't take care of yourself, you're going to be stuck in a relationship, to where, you don't get to make choices. So all of these crazy things are happening in my head at a very young age, and I don't realize that it's propelling me to make a lot of decisions. So a lot of the decisions I made were just on wrong moves, right? And, and when you're living a life on fear, not love, that's a scary place to be. So when 13 years old and I find this alcohol, oh my God, it erased all my fears. Well, who would want to give up that superpower? If you felt completely fearless, why would you give it up? If someone told you tomorrow, hey, I just figured out how to fly, but you shouldn't do that anymore, you think you're going to quit flying? No, you're going to keep your superpower. So it's really hard to hear that, because then the outside influence started very early on for me, because the behaviors, like it was like a Mr. Jekyll, almost instantly overnight, I'm not making good grades anymore. I'm skipping school. I'm not hanging out with kids my age. I'm hanging out with grown adults. I'm out there going find what I need to find without having a job, without having a car. And I'm learning a culture, right? And it's a very deep culture of manipulation. I'm learning how to manipulate people. I'm learning how to use those things to my advantage with one goal. And I have one goal, and it's to get what Victoria wants it, and Victoria wants to be obliterated. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm doing at 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. So everybody
So now, at this point, you're not a good student anymore.
Not a good student anymore.
Was there anyone trying to figure out what's up?
Yeah, I had an intervention in 8th grade. So 8th grade is when it started, really. So about that age, 13 years old, and I had a group of peers, because for me, school was a big important thing because it's where I got the attention that I really wanted from adults. I didn't always get that from other places. I got a lot of praise. It was, I, it's a place I can go and feel good and feel like people appreciated me and that I was, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I very much liked the teachers. But it's the second I found these drugs and alcohol, I didn't really care what they thought. But they did. They cared about me. And I had a group of all the 8th grade teachers pull me into a room. And this is what my parents, and I never understood why they didn't really involve my parents until later because
Did they knew your
no
parents?
offense, my parents I don't know, and I love my mom. My mom may listen to this, but the truth is, they nobody really knew what to do with me. Let's put it that way. And so I'm in this room, and they pull me in this room, and they say, hey, we'd like you to be the mistress of ceremonies for the 8th grade, graduation. Cool. Like, I'm on the top of my, in the top 5 of the class, whatever. And then they sit down and they have a conversation about my behavior because they can see you've changed. We know these friends you're hanging out with. We know you're not doing all these things. I didn't necessarily get bad grades yet, but like my attitude, I'm such a really am a cool student, and now I have a really bad attitude. I'm starting to get in a lot of trouble. I'm starting to get fights. I'm starting to have this isn't Victoria. And they're like, if you changed right now, you could be valedictorian, which was a big deal because I'm from St. Rose, a smaller school. When we start like kind of funneling in the high school, it's a lot more competitive, and we aren't necessarily considered the school with the strongest set of students at the time. No offense to anyone listening, but I think maybe 5 or like not many of us made it like in the honors classes. And I was put in honors classes in high school, so it's like a subsection of where they put you is they see aptitude. And they're like, you could do a lot of really great things. You're very smart. And I walked out of that room, and I didn't hear any of it. And the second I went into high school, it went to crap.
So my wife is a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and I think maybe teachers today would get in trouble for that.
Oh yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
The culture is just different.
Yeah.
Like,
Especially
that's
nowadays.
amazing that your teachers did that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, I think we've all had teachers that touched us in some way.
Yeah.
But I mean, they have a group of teachers that say, "Wait a second."
Yeah. And I wish I could have heard it. I really do.
Yeah.
But I had to go through
They
what I
wish
had to
to.
go through.
Hopefully, they're listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope they are too. I think they're
Yeah.
really proud of
Because
me.
that's what sucks. That's what sucks about being a teacher.
Yeah.
Like, you're not really.
Yeah.
Know what you did.
Anything you're not.
Yeah.
But I do remember it, and
That's awesome.
And so when I'm getting into high school, I'm in these, I'm turning in papers with just my name on it. I mean, I'm in school every day. I'm getting kicked out. It was just, I'm in the bathroom and I'm doing drugs in the bathroom. I'm walking, I got to go smoke cigarettes. And then everybody was just tired of me at the point, like by I think junior year, they're like, she just does whatever she does. I'm sleeping in the bathroom. I'm failing classes that I have A's in because I can't make the amount of days to school. So it's chaos. My life is chaos, and that's not counting the actual actions that I'm doing when I'm not at school. And it very much got to the point, and there's kids that I did things with, it's fun until it's not fun anymore. But even then, those kids that were doing like, we don't do this. Like, this has gone too far. This is insanity. And I was very much, if you don't like what I do, you can go. Walk out the door. And, so very early on, I'm already pushing everybody away. I was a very angry, very mean, very much hurting. I don't know why I was hurting so much a lot of the times, but it's that I always was under the belief that no one's going to hurt me. I'm going to hurt them first. And I'm not proud of that because, what happens now is, my range of how I affect people just gets bigger and bigger, as I'm kind of growing up and I'm engaging more people. And I was very much a tornado, and I very much was destructive. I very much was a liar, thief, all of those things. So I'm to the point now, people don't want me around. I don't blame them now. Like, I wouldn't want me around either. The only people that have me around are people who have equal motives, right? So what happens is, now I'm in a place where, I think, I'm like in my senior year. I was right after Katrina, was my senior year. I was in school maybe a couple weeks, and that was a really rough time for me. I got I got displaced with everyone else. We kind of like drove out of town, and I remember we were coming. I only had so many things on me, and the drugs, alcohol, and we're thinking we're coming back. I'm like, well, that's cool. And that was my first experience realizing that I can't be without it because I never really had to. Now, I've been on probation and stuff. I was on probation, but like all that did as a kid being, because I was juvenile delinquent, I was a runaway.
Wait. So before we start taping, I said, yeah, no Coolio died.
Yeah.
So like, okay, I really don't know who Julio is.
Oh my God.
Like, I ain't a kid your age. But I saw a meme this morning that like, yeah, he went to that gangsters. So that's the only reason I know who Julio is.
Yeah.
And like, and you were like, I've been living that gangster.
Yeah.
Like, you really were living that gangster.
Yes.
You
Yes.
thought she was
I'm
lying.
not lying. I don't even know how far down that scope that I was in, but very much, you know.
Tattoo or an ankle bracelet.
Yeah, that's a tattoo covering a homemade tattoo. So let's tell you talk about gangster's paradise right there. From that time.
You gave yourself a tattoo?
I gave myself a tattoo. That's some jailhouse tattoo. So. And I might be a little dressed today, but I promise you I was covered in piercings and black and
But you tattooed yourself.
tattooed myself. I pierced my
Oh my God.
If you gotta go to the YouTube channel and
I'm starting to sweat.
You thought I was all nice and pretty when I walked in?
Jeez.
That's all the work, Jen.
never
That's all the work.
judge a book by its cover.
So,
You really are cool.
yeah, I am. You know,
I don't even know what a Coolio is, but
Yeah.
apparently he's a dead rapper.
yeah.
Rest in peace.
Okay.
Rest in
Thank
peace.
you.
I was sad when I saw that.
I was
went live
too.
concert and I thought,
Man, I was
they did a 90s thing.
I guess we're not going to segue into how you tattooed yourself.
No.
No, they don't want to. We don't want to give our viewers any ideas. I would much prefer you to go to our guy Flex and go get it fixed. 'Cause
Yeah.
He had laughed about getting. You
Did
sure
he?
you want to cover this? Okay, dude, just cover the tattoo.
I know
So-
it sucks.
Flex is awesome.
He's like, you can't work here anyway. So and I kind of skipped over, but yes, very much a
So
juvenile.
you really were.
Yeah, oh yeah. You didn't want me around your kids. You didn't want me, very much that person now. I've turned that person. You don't want me
So
hanging
you go to the high school reunions?
around. No, I didn't technically graduate, so I got out of the
You can
last
still
year.
go.
I was invited, but I didn't. My husband's like, really? Do you really want to go to this? They probably don't want to see me there either.
Oh, I think it would be one hell of a transformation.
Yeah. Yeah, but where's my motive? And then we'll talk about that, right? What's my motive?
okay.
And I do a lot of things now.
That's very
What's
mature.
my motive? Because
She's grown so much. Like that's the reason why I wanted to.
if my motive is to show
I'd be like
people,
walking in there like,
Like I know.
look, I made this shit count.
Because if somebody out there like has a child or maybe themselves that are struggling with in this right now, maybe they're in jail listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like there is an out.
yeah,
Like there is a way, but there's a lot of work.
yeah, I still
To
have
be
to do
done.
a lot of work. And
Yeah.
so just to kind of get in it, by 17, like I said, I failed some drug tests, even probation, but I even got trickier. Like, I'm one of those kids researching, well, I won't smoke pot, I'm gonna do a lot of ecstasy. So like I'm actually just propelling my drug use and I was laughing and I was talking about it the other day. One time I was so convinced I was gonna pass a drug test because these probation officers and they tried to help me too. These people that really cared, I have to say it. These are people
Yeah,
who
you
care.
don't do something like
And they're
that
like,
just for a paycheck.
I'm a drunk, y'all, and I'm going to talk about that because I say I did a lot of drugs. I was drunk all the time, so I've had a lot of memory lapses. So I would say my life, almost most of it, I had at least 1 to 3 blackouts a month, and that's being very conservative. I just black out, and when I black out, I like to go have a lot of fun. So I took a drug test one time. I said, I'm going to pass it, and did not pass it. And I was like, I don't even remember what I did. She's like, well, this is what you did. And I was like, oh, okay. So anyway, I did eventually get off the probation. I didn't end up having to go to, juvenile jail or anything like that, but I did have a lot of run-ins with the law. I had a lot of consequences in school. Like I said, I'm not doing well. My GPA might have been like a 1. I'm having problems in my home and my family, and it's not just me, but I also have another sister who's kind of going insane at the same time. So, around 17, at the height of everything, the cocaine usage, the alcohol usage, all of it was piling up on me, and it got to the point, and I said when I went through Katrina, I don't know if I finished that story, I had to bring all these things with me. When I realized when I got back, I don't have enough to make it 2 weeks. I was like, holy shit, I really can't stop if I wanted to. And that was probably my first glimpse at realizing this is a little bit beyond me just being a punk kid, because really that's what I thought. I was in control, right? I don't have an addiction problem. You can't tell a 17-year-old they're addicted to alcohol. But very much when you go back and listen to that first time I drank, like, who's taking shots at 15 in their closet by themselves? An alcoholic is, but that's not something I could understand at the time. You know what I mean? So I think from the very beginning there was a problem, and like I said, it's a family trait around where I'm from. So and at 17 it really mounted up, and I ended my first time in detox at 17 years old with adults.
And you sent yourself.
No. you get to a point in place where you just can't get your hands on things. And I remember my mom trying to pull me out of bars. Y'all had a big idea. I never had any issues going into bars, drinking. My mom's pulled me out of bars at 17. And I remember this one time, like, and I'm trying to get a hold of other things, and I'm doing who knows what. And I remember I just had a moment of like trying to just get her off my back. Like, she tried, she's like, she knows I can't be letting my 17-year-old daughter doing cocaine and drinking alcohol in a bar pretending she's 21 years old. I got to get her out of here. And I just didn't want to hear it. I did whatever I wanted whenever I wanted, and I didn't care. And I remember her trying to take me out of there, and I hid behind the bar. And my friend, my best friend, she was always really worried about me. She's like, this is where she's at, Miss Michelle. And I told her, I said, the only way I'll get in that car with you is if you get in the house, I'm going to kill myself. Now, the reason why I said I was going to kill myself is I remember if you do that, they put you a little psych ward and you get a little break from life for a minute. So that was my little thought process. I'll get out of all of this, and I'll give a little break. So just bring me on down to the psych ward and we'll go get me, go tell them that I said. And that's not what happened. Those people immediately knew what my problem was. So, like, it really backfired
on you.
And, I'm 17 and it's all adults in there, and for the first time I remember thinking it was kind of nice to have a bed that was, no one's looking for me, I don't have to worry about the outside world. So it was one of those first times I really kind of got a break from myself and the chaos I was in. And I don't know if I was really willing, but, kind of once you get swept up in there, I'm under, like, you're put in a room, I'm medically being detoxed, or watching your vitals, all these things. I'm talking to these adults in here, and I really don't want to go back to school. That was just I wasn't really participating anyway. I really didn't want to go back home. I don't know what I wanted. I just knew I was really lost, and I didn't know I didn't admit it at the time. I felt it. So when they said, hey, and I can't really legally sign out of anything because I'm not an adult, and they let me smoke my cigarettes, and I'm like, this is cool, drink some coffee, smoke cigarettes, and people do recovery. I could do this for a little while, and they're like, well, we're gonna put you in like inpatient. This is when institutions started for me. So institutions or rehabs. I think I went to a 3-month program in Opelousas, Louisiana. Okay, all right, and it's 3 months, and it's supposed to be catered more to younger people with these kind of issues because you don't always see younger people to that extremity. So they have to kind of separate y'all. And they're like, it's 3 months. I'm like, I could do that. I didn't get out for 8 months because that's how much this girl doesn't listen, and how much I fight everything that I'm in. And I'm lucky that I was able to afford to be in there as long as I had, but, I did eventually get out of there. But, at this time when I'm going through these rehabs, I'm really struggling. Anytime I get a pass, like a pass meaning you're leaving and going, to your parents, the second I get to my parents' house, I go get loaded again. Then I come back, I take a drug, and I'm stuck there longer. And I understood that drugs were a problem. I understood that I didn't want to be stealing from people. I understood that I didn't want to be breaking into people's cars and homes and y'all, I'm not lying. Those are the kind of things that I did, because when you start getting a habit, you have to feed that habit. And there's another way ladies do it, and I wasn't interested in that route. So mine was to be really tough. I wanted to be really tough. I was trying to protect myself, but I also was trying to feed this addiction that I just could never feed. It's the disease of never having enough, and I don't care what it was in my life, I never had enough. And I'm stuck in this round of institutions. So the second I get out of one, I end up back in another one. Because once you kind of get a little bit of recovery in your head, so they're teaching you all these things. These are people who've been through it, but it's hard to get through sometimes. Home kids, and I was a home kid, and and even in the while I'm going through this, I have a sister who actually, she's having a lot of problems. She's in prison, so I'm like, well, she's doing some years in prison. I'm much better off in this rehab. She's older than me. We have we're, like I said, we're a family. We when we do bad together. And I'm sure my parents were going completely insane with us at this time. And I remember, I don't know. I understood that there's no high school after this. They made me drop out of high school because I just couldn't function well. And so I still retained a lot of information. I literally dropped out of high school and tested for my GED. So I got my GED the next week. I didn't have to do anything.
You're just super smart.
So, well, you burn a lot of brain cells along the way. So we'll say that. I don't know if we'll say that, but but I had aptitude that wasn't completely wasted. But I just couldn't figure out this thing called life. And when I say I'm in and out of institutions, I went back to that specific one like 3 times. I ended up in one in Lafayette. I ended up in a halfway house in California. And everywhere I'm going, I'm pissing people off along the way because I'm not going and then doing the program and walking out. I'm going in and I'm causing more chaos and I'm getting kicked out, you know. So every kind of place I step my foot, I'm just stepping more on the toes of my peers. And there was a counselor that I really, really liked at that one place I went to. But the second time I went there, you're not supposed to hoard money. There's a lot of rules, right? It's like the way you dress, you have to get up at like 6, kind of like boot camp, clean things, you know. And the second time, it's like I'm really gonna do it, and like subconsciously, I'm doing all these negative things. I don't even realize it, right? So I'm saving and hoarding money and all these things, and I get in a fight with a guy there. I'm not even supposed to talk to the guys, but I'm tough, Bill. I feel like you need to be scared of me. That was a thing that I did, and I get in a fight with this guy, and I ended up running away from this rehab and taking another girl with me and going to another state and then ending up in a hospital, and then I'm here. Honestly, most days I don't, but I'm really thankful that I'm here today, you know, and that's a big deal. So when we get to the bottom of what's going on, I would say about my 18, 19-year-old self, I'm just hopping out of places. I ended up in a homeless shelter for a while. I got kicked out of there. And it was a really happy place. It was like women and children. So they would let me back in the rehabs because I keep doing these bad behaviors. Like, we'll let you stay here. You can stay in this shelter as long as you have a job. You do this, you do that. And I'm doing great. And then I get a wild hair one night. I break out the window. I go get in trouble. I end up in a hospital. And I remember thinking how shameful I felt for doing it to those people and those women that lived there. You know, not that I did anything to them, but again, here I am again, acting like a lunatic. Like, you know, who would want that around? I really hated myself. I really hated myself. Did not, you know, if you hate yourself, like I hated people that said they loved me because how much I hated myself. If that makes any sense. I have a grandfather who went to the ends of the earth with me, and he still does, and he's still very much in my life today. Him and my grandmother. And I said they love me through some things that nobody else would, you know. And it's even though I had that, I know not everybody has that. I'm very lucky, you know. No matter how far down the scale I've gone, they really love me through it, and they've always invited me back to get some help. And when I was ready for help, they were always there, and you know they would let me come in their home. You know, they did a lot of things that I don't know if I would. Right. But they truly, I had that unconditional love that I don't think a lot of people had, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to have someone else's unconditional love. I had to learn how to fix the whole thing. I know how.
So when did you hit bottom?
You would think it was about that time. That was probably the worst of the physical, of the homelessness, of the rehabs, of the jails, you know, things like that. But I met a man, y'all, and I'm gonna talk about it. And look, I told y'all one of my biggest fears was having a man come control me. So I never really had relationships through all this. I'm not a person that I do what I want. So the second anybody I got boyfriends and then they would just disappear. It's because that's how heartless I can be sometimes. It's because I just did what I wanted, and there was nobody going to get in the way of that, you know. So the second anybody tried to assert themselves, I mean, well, you just go that way. So I met a man, and I'm actually going to be married to this man 15 years in February.
Wow.
We've been together for a hot minute, and he's been together, and I've only been sober 7, so he's been through some thick and thin with me. But I did meet this man, and I met him before, and you know, and that's just me doing my thing. He's cool, whatever. I'm actually dating his best friend at this time, by the way, too. And you know, he made a move on me. He was really, and I'm like, man, this guy's too nice. You know what I mean? Like, you're really screwing up with me, but it's okay. I like to have a good time. I kind of go with the flow, and I screw it up because that's what I do. I'm lying about my drug use. Nobody really wants that kind of thing. I'm saying I'm going to school during the day, and my grandfather paid for me to go to Delgado, and I never went one single day because every time I got in the car, I ended up somehow in the hood. And what happens when your lies get built up upon you is that one day, you know, if he was wondering, because he would go to work like a normal person and do all these things, and he called my mom, and I told my mom I'm with him, and I told him with my mom finally, you know, that the gig's up. Where are you? You know, and I was really bad off at that time. So almost instantly, he breaks up with me. He folded all my stuff so nicely and put it outside. I was like, look at this guy, still fucking nice. And I'm like, you know,
just throw it out.
Yeah, I know because I know how I act. You know, but I'm like, whatever. And I end up back in rehab. You know, that's what I do. And later on down the line, after I'm kicked out of all these rehabs, I end up back at my grandparents' house. I'm in California. It was like the last time, I think, and I wanted to come home, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. And I was like, you know, maybe if I go to school, Papa, that will help. I don't know what to do, right? Because these rehabs obviously are doing. I'm not doing anything these rehabs are suggesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Wondering why I'm getting no results because I'm not really convinced I have a problem right now.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what my problem is. So you know, 19, and he goes to the military, and he reaches back out to me, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing good now. It's always, you know, I'm doing really good now, and he was just making sure I was alive, probably. Really was a sincerely nice guy. And he came down from, I guess, like, what is it, like your basic training, you have like some transitions, and he comes back down here, and oh, we're just in love. And 2 months later, we get married, right? Because he has to go to Afghanistan. And that's kind of like military culture, too. Like, if you want to come, I think that pretty much, like, if you want to come with me, we get married. Sure, let's go. And that's how I live my life. Like, I didn't take any second to make any thought of any decision. I literally, you know, riding a leaf on the wind, and that's how my life was. Like, I never actually took a moment and thought anything through because I just didn't know where to go with my life. So I married him. 3 months later, I get arrested. And while he's in Afghanistan, and this is what I do, Jen. I like to blow things up. I'm telling you, when things are going really well for me, I get really tight at the wrong time, and then the house of cards starts tumbling down, and I'm like, oh, good, he'll divorce me. I'm surprised we made it 3 months. That's not thought. That's not a process, and that's probably what he should have did. And I remember he was so pissed off at me, and who would blame his dad? I think his dad and his mom. I think between them and my grandfather got me out of jail. I'm sure that's what they really wanted out of this new lovely daughter-in-law they got. I'm sure they were not a fan.
See, it's going great right now.
Yeah. So and you know, I remember he's on the phone because he's at war, y'all, and I'm still making this about me. And I mean, I am sorry, but that's what the things that I do. I go in a blackout and I do crazy things. I get pulled over. I just tell them, take me to jail. Just put my hand, take me to jail, y'all. Like, that's just, I don't care, you know. And he's like, you know what? You want me to do that. I'm not divorcing you. We're staying together. And we're going to get through this. And I think that was one of the first shocks of my life where, even though it did not change me, because y'all would be another, I think it's sober at 27. So we got a little bit more time here before we get sober. But it was the first time someone's like, you know what? I'm going to love you anyway. And like, you know, and I think it did something for me. It did. It obviously was a little bit of a spiritual change for me. And from there on out, I made it a point that I really wasn't going to drink and drive anymore, that I wasn't really going to get those behaviors, that I really was going to do the next right thing to the best of my ability. And although I meant it, I still have a problem, right? So I do separate myself from the drugs. I separate myself from all of those people, all of those places, all of those things. The second he gets back in the States, I go to the States, I go to Washington State with him. I enroll in school and I get serious, and you know, on the outside, my life starts looking really good. And you have to understand with this, I have an internal problem. You know, my insides are all messed up, and when my insides feel bad, instead of looking at it and correcting what's going on inside me, I like to take external things and try to fix it. So, you know, getting married, you know, I'm gonna be honest, having kids, I later have a kid. You know, I'm like, if I start doing what I see normal people doing, the outsides will change my insides, but it doesn't work. Yeah. It's very much your insides and then your outsides. But I didn't, you know, that's what I thought I needed to do. So no more rehabs, no more people trying to tell me how to get sober. I'm just, you know, I'm just gonna remove all those people, places, and things. I move up to Washington State with this man. I'm going to school, and life does look really good for me. Now key in closet alcoholism. You know, now I've gotten the outside picture and people are starting to trust me again. You know, I'm starting to make my grandparents proud. I'm starting to make everybody proud. So the person who gets to live through the hell of addiction is him. And he spent a lot of his time shielding the world from me. And he even put it that way one time, close to before I quit drinking. He's like, it's not that I'm shielding you from the world. I'm shielding the world from you. And that hits you right between your eyes. Wow. I'm a piece of shit, right? But he always called me his, I'm going to say it, diamond in the rough. And I'm like, they had to see something deep in it, because I really don't know what he saw. I said, he's the really complete insane person. So not to sit here and go into all my relationships.
I know that.
I don't know. I don't know if I could hear it. It's so hard to hear from him and his perspective. But he has one. And you know, and that sometimes, and I'll be honest, the reason that I'm alive today, the reason why I'm here today is him. And it's not because I was doing it for him, but you know, it's that little insight, that person that stuck with me. And I'm going to say the last time that I got drunk, it wasn't the worst time. It wasn't the best time. It was, you know, I got drunk. I had a blackout. I don't know how I got home. I'm looking at him. He's all scratched up and beat up. I'm like, what happened to you? You know, and I'm like, oh, nonchalant. He's like, you happened to me. And that shame in his face. And I really don't know. And he's like, I didn't even bother telling you because you don't even know. You know, he's already at the point, he separated myself from the person when I'm drinking and the person I'm not, because I'm two completely told people.
Mhm.
And he knew that I'm just going to say the same thing that I've been saying over and over and over again. I won't do it again. And for the first time in my life, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was a spiritual experience. I don't know if it's just I really got tired of myself, because I got to that jumping off place before that. Like I said, I understand now why people commit suicide. And I think that if I couldn't stop this carousel that this cyclical thing that I keep doing, then I was, you know, I think that's where I was at. And seeing that shame in his face, and I don't want to hurt these people.
Yeah.
I don't want to do these things. Like, am I just a bad person? That's where I'm at with this, right? I'm just a horrible person, you know. I have a daughter now at this point, and I thought when I had this child that, you know, and I looked at her and I said, man, I'm never, you know, I really don't want to. I'm never going to do to this child some of the things that were done to me. I'm not going to expose her to the things that I was exposed to. And I had a lot of trouble. She was premature. So, and I lost I'm not going to get my fertility, but I lost a pregnancy before that. They could never really figure out what was wrong. And then I have her, and I go into labor twice with her. So I have her premature. I'm in the hospital with her over a month, and I remember holding that baby. So I'm going to protect this baby, and I'm just not going to do these things. And I had a lot of trouble breastfeeding. And one of the first things that they suggest, you know, maybe if you have a glass of wine, you know, and it's the thing, it helps you relax because my anxiety was so high. And that is it. That one glass of wine, I'm off to the races again, because I have a problem. I have an allergy. I have a disease that when I take one drink, I can't stop, you know. And there's a mental obsession, there's a craving, there's a lot of things that go into it that propel it. But at the end of the day, Victoria couldn't stand looking at Victoria. And I'm disgusted. And I'm just disgusted. So I was negative. You know, I'm just a very negative person. Anything that I've done worthwhile, because I did go back to school. I ended up like a 3.8 in college, y'all, and like you know what I mean. I had a 1.0 and I have a GED, and you know I could do things. But everything goes back to what was my motive. My motive was to show the world, Phil. So, like you said, I would go back to that reunion. That's not good for me. It's not healthy for me, because that's how I got a college degree out of it. But every time I obtained something that I wanted, I never understood why I felt so empty after. You know, I got married, I feel empty. I had this baby, I feel empty. I went back to college, I got a degree, I feel empty. I got that house, I feel empty. And every time, so you have to see, but now that I'm getting older, that's how I'm getting to the point, nothing's ever gonna fill this cup, and I don't know why. And that's the sound off to recovery. Now, the lucky thing is, since I was through all those institutions, I kind of knew where to go. And if you ever have a question where to go, you can reach out to Jen over here, and I can hook you up with some people. And it's not really what I want to talk about, but what I do want to talk about is I needed a complete, total personality change to change my life. And I didn't know how to do it. I mean, of course, I had to put down the bottle, right? I can't do anything when I'm fog-headed and I'm drinking, because I can't even make, once I have a drink in me, there is no more decisions instinct. Like, my body's going to do what it's going to do until I stop and I hit a wall, whether it be, you know, go to jail, sometimes go to rehab, sometimes it's being locked in my house and my husband keeping me from getting the car keys, all these crazy things that I had to go through, you know. I had to learn to plug the jug, right? But there's so much other work that needs to be done, because think about it, there's a lot of times I got sober, but I would say maybe 3 days before I couldn't deal with myself anymore. So it comes down, I had a problem with me, you know.
And how'd you fix that?
A lot of work, a lot of internal work. So I'm not gonna, you know, like I use a program that helped me, but I had a mentor, and this mentor is one of my best friends today. She's about 80-something years old. I'm Pat's already about 83 now. We've been together for a minute, but she had been a lot. She has 5 kids. She has a lot of similar story to me, and she took the time to walk me through how she was and how to get to the other side. And I remember one of the biggest things that we'd meet in sessions and we would read and we really dive deep. So for the first time, I'm looking at myself. I'm talking about the transgressions that I put on people. You know what I mean? I did not see the cyclical movement of the things I did, but when I wrote it down and put it pen to paper, I got to see, there's no taking it back. This is my behaviors and this is what I keep doing. I get to take a full inventory of my fears. And I thought I was fearless, y'all. If you would have asked me 7 years ago, I have none. And look, you're listening to how I'm living my life. I'm scared shitless, right? But I don't realize I'm fearless when I have that. It's my superpower. That's why I have to keep it in me. And the second it's not in me anymore, I can't face life. Right. I can't do normal things that normal people do. But I had to learn that, you know, what my fears were. And we just talked about a few of them. Some of them as simple as I was scared a man was going to come control me. I was scared that I didn't know how to buy a house, or I couldn't take care of myself, or I couldn't be 100% sufficient. But the biggest thing I learned about myself is that I was so scared of people. I had such a wall built around me. I trusted no one, absolutely no one. Not my, and even the people that I love, even my grandfather, even my husband. And I had the complete inability to form a real, true relationship with anybody. The people that kept me around would just keep me around at that point because I wasn't letting you in. So she had a lot of work to do to kind of take down this wall, this exterior that I had, and it was so negative. So one of the things she would always make me do, Victoria, when you come next week, I'm gonna have to hear 5 positive things about you. I'm like, what? I can't just keep it up. It'll be 20. And I'm like, okay. So I didn't think it would be easy, but girl, I hated myself. And you hear that saying that you really can't love someone unless you love yourself, but it's really true. I can't be anything to anyone. I can't be a mother to this daughter because I resent anything that loves me. Mm-hmm. I do, because I'm a piece of shit, And I had to go through not only the work of taking responsibility first. I would say the most biggest thing was taking responsibility for my actions, because whether it was because I was intoxicated, whether it was because I had this poor me life, whatever reason you would come up with, I did the action. I am responsible for my actions. So there's people today, if they hear my voice on here, they probably don't want anything to do with me, and they're very much entitled to that. But I would invite them to know me again because I'm not the same person anymore. And if there's anything that I could do to make it right, I would do it. And I really mean that today. I had a lot of resentment. With family, and I know I didn't get too into that, but especially with my father, we did not, and he's an alcoholic, he's in the depths of his cup, and he's going through all these things while I'm going through it. And I remember, so it took me 2 years in sobriety, and I was just not willing. I was like, I'm not willing right now just to forgive him, because I still feel like he needs to tell me sorry for some things that and then I just wasn't there yet. He got really sick. His liver was shutting down. His kidneys were shutting down, because that's what alcohol does. You keep putting it in your body, it's going to eventually get y'all. If you have a problem with alcohol, and that's a very common theme. And I remember he was in the hospital, and I was like, man, this is it. He's not coming out of this, And I had a moment. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to take responsibility for my actions. I'm not pointing fingers anymore. And I made amends for not always being the daughter that I should have been. It's not about what he did to me. It's not about anybody else's business. I was cleaning my side of the street. And you know what the coolest thing that happened from that? Man got sober. Now, a year into sobriety, he got cancer. And he stayed sober through the cancer. And then less than 2 years ago, he passed away. I got to take care of a person that I could not stand or talk to. I got to be there the last breath.
All because you took responsibility.
Because I took responsibility. And I learned that of those things that I really don't want to do the most, those ones that hurt so bad, like I'm fighting it. I mean, I prayed for willingness, because I had to learn how to pray, because I didn't know how to do that. I was an atheist most of my life, and now I have a power that I believe is greater than me. And I just had to pray for a lot of willingness. And every time I took that step for that thing that I fought, that's where the most beautiful things in life have come. And it's not just that example, that's one of my favorite.
Yeah.
But
I think everybody can take that away, huh?
And I think that's not a guarantee, right? That wasn't the guaranteed outcome. But I've learned that if I stop walking into things expecting a goddamn outcome and just do the next right thing, things work out. The only way it needs to work out. And sometimes that working out doesn't mean you get to be best friends. It wasn't the relationship I think I wanted with it, but it was definitely a beautiful thing that I got. And I'll always be thankful for that. And we're coming up on 2 years since he's passed away, and it's hard to watch someone with nothing, but I'm so proud of him. So proud of him to stay sober through it. That's a hard thing to do, Yeah. That's a hard thing to do, especially faced with, he wanted to live. And that's where I think it gets down to my story, is that I wanted to live. I just didn't know how to want to live. And today I want to live. And I want to live it to the fullest.
So tell me how you're making it count today, because I see it.
Yeah.
I see it every day, and I respect it. And I didn't even know half of the story.
Yeah.
But how do you think that you're making it count every day?
Well, I continue to take responsibility for myself first and foremost. But, we talk about, I try to make it count, and I surround myself with people today that add to my life. Okay. And it's not that I always do that, but when I go to work, I'm with a boss that I really respect and I love. I have coworkers I really respect and I love. I have people at my gym that I really respect and love. People in my home, anywhere that I have the control and ability to put those people on, I'm putting positive people in my life. I know we don't always get to control who's in our lives, and where I don't always have that control. That's where those nice little boundaries come in. But what I really do, what really makes my life count today is that those worst things about me, those negative things about me, those things that I never wanted to relive, I never wanted to talk about, I wanted to bury to my grave, are my most prized possessions today because those are the things that help me help women who are stuck where I was stuck.
Yeah.
Those are my superpowers now.
Yeah, the scars matter.
Yeah, those are the superpowers now. That is my and if you had told me that I would have ever thought that, like, I thought you were insane. But those are really the things today because I meet ladies all the time, and I say ladies because usually, I try to stick with the ladies. We need powerful, strong women in our lives. And I have some great men too. I have some great men. And look, most of my friends growing up were males, so that's a big change for me. And
Finding let's put this out there because you're not going to understand this. Finding strong women who set boundaries,
yeah,
who take responsibilities for their action, are hard to find
yeah,
because the women like to play that poor, pitiful me,
yeah.
like victim, and it's hard to find strong women. You had to say that. No, your wife is. I'm scared of your wife. I used to train her. I'm scared of her. But yet, like it's hard to find that group of women. I think it's becoming more mainstream because the whole like build you up, but like that is hard to find
Yeah,
in women,
yeah,
and it's hard to like surround yourself with authentic women
yeah.
who aren't just doing it for the gram, aren't doing it for the social media. They're doing it genuinely to help people.
You mean the gram like the Instagram?
Yeah.
That's it,
I like the Coolio brand.
Yeah, I was like,
Sorry,
where's she
Coolio.
going
We're
with
giving
this?
y'all the love today.
Maybe Coolio sponsor. I'm sure he's got someone. Yeah. But the one other thing I want to talk to you about before you go that I'm super inspired by is the boundaries that you set in your life. Like you are very strict with your boundaries of who's in your life, what you do with your life to make it count every day. Where did that come from? Like how?
Learning, and I'm not going to say I do it 100% perfect because I don't. There are some places in my life I still struggle because you have those people you don't get to choose, or you don't pick your sisters, you don't pick your parents, you don't pick those people, and I want them in my life. So I toggle sometimes back and forth, but what I've learned is, especially with my kids, right? I'm not lying. I want my kids to have an authentic life. I want them to be surrounded by positive things. If I feel like even I don't care who it is, I've learned that if people want to be there, they'll make the change. When you set the boundary, if they're mad, it's because it's because it's a reflection on them.
Okay.
And I make the rules really clear. This is why. And if you change this, you're welcome to be here. And if you want to keep doing what you're doing, it's your life. Go for it. Do it. I'm not here to tell people how to. I don't care. I'm not the drinking police, y'all. People can drink. If you don't have a problem with alcohol, you can drink. But it's not. It's all back to being true to myself. And I'm learning about myself now. I know I can't do that. And I'm learning. And even going to the gym. The gym's a big thing because y'all. What I found out. I like to put food in place of things sometimes. I like to find ease and comfort in my hand, and I like to ingest it in my body. And I don't care what it is. So I have to be, consistent of that. So you'll notice sometimes Jen has been on this journey with me. I go up and down, and a lot of time, if you follow my weight, you follow my stress. Really? So she's like, I'm gonna go back and look at your pictures now. But like right now, I'm kind of on the downhill of it because I'm like, I'm coming off a bunch of stress right now. I went through Ida and all those things, and my dad, and I'm not even gonna get into all the things, but I have I have other things that I like to.
And you're still struggling.
Yeah, I mean, I'm human, and I gotta sometimes check myself, but I have people around me that will check me today.
Yeah,
that's important.
That's important.
Yeah,
for sure. Life is always going to be a struggle.
Yeah,
but just kind of like you said, it kind of ebbs and flows.
I have tools today, and those tools are, it's an array of things, but definitely, it helps when you're around positive people because sometimes it's not that something needs to change. Sometimes it's just my perspective that needs to change. Because it's not always that it's the people's place and things. Sometimes it's my attitude. And a lot of times it's my attitude. And if you always, I don't even, people recognize me big, and I have the worst attitude.
It's your attitude.
It is. It really is. Think about it. Sometimes, I walk against things that I don't want to do that could be great things, and it's just a bad attitude.
I think it was The Noticer. That's a good book to change your perspective on things.
Well, my favorite prayer, and so I had to learn, some things and some tools, and one that I still use today that I used really early on is the Serenity Prayer, and it's really simple. God, like help me to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And it's so simple, but it's true. I have to stop on a daily basis. Can I change it? If I can't change it, like what, then it basically comes down to if I can't change it and I can't remove myself from it, then I got attitude, perspective problem. So I just put that formula right on top of everything.
I love it.
But the other big thing that makes it count, I think the hugest and biggest thing that I got from this is that I learned how to reach out to people. So if I don't know how to do something today, I don't sit here and struggle anymore by myself. When I didn't know to do it my health, Jen, that's how I found you. I said, I'm going to go, I figured that out with my getting sober. Maybe that works for my physical health. I have a son who was diagnosed autistic, and it was really difficult for the first couple of years. I went and found a parenting class. Like, I use people's experiences today because I found it just like, I don't have to struggle. There's so many. Why reinvent the wheel? There's people out there who's already been there, who's already been through it. So if you're, that's the one thing I encourage, and all that. And I use it everywhere now. I'm like, maybe I do it too much, but I definitely go out and I reach out to people now when I'm struggling.
I don't think you can ever reach out to help too much.
Yeah.
No, I think, I mean, I always sound cool when I say stuff like this, but I think like the younger generation, like, they struggle.
Yeah.
And I kind of throw a little alley-oop there for my son. Like, hey, here you go.
Yeah.
Reach out to this person. Ask this guy. Hey, did you do that? No. No.
Helps with time.
And wisdom.
Age.
Well, Victoria, your story has been inspiring, not only to me, but I know to a lot of people. And I know that today you're living every day to make it count. If you could leave somebody with one thing out there that's probably in your shoes, what would you tell them?
Honestly, love yourself. And that's where it comes from. And if you can't love yourself, I don't think you can do much other than that. You got to love yourself first. So I wake up every single day and I tell myself how much I forgive myself and how much I love myself before I can go out and do anything else.